Welcome to Socials with the Saints. Are you looking for hope and inspiration? Grab a cup of tea or your favorite beverage and spend some time with us as we meet role models throughout church history and discuss how they can help us in our daily pilgrimage of life.
Hello and thank you for joining us. Welcome to Socials with the Saints. Our mission is to inspire you in your daily pilgrimage of life by introducing you to the communion of saints. I'm Jason Kelly. I serve as part of the dedicated staff at Pilgrim Center of Hope and as a member of our speaker team. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Pilgrim Center of Hope, a Catholic ministry founded in 1993 with a mission of helping you walk your journey of daily life in hope with Christ and the Church. Socials with the Saints are opportunities to learn from role models of faith and one another for fellowship, prayer, and receiving spiritual tools. Today we will get to know a Lebanese Maronite mystic who is beloved around the world as a healer and intercessor. We are recording this podcast as a resource for those who could not attend our in-person Socials with the Saints gathering. You are most welcome to join us on the third Thursday of every month in San Antonio, Texas. Visit pilgrimcenterofhope.org for more information about our in-person Social with the Saints gatherings. Our saint for today is Saint Charbel Makhlouf, who was born on May the 8th, 1828 in Beka Kafra, North Lebanon. Saint Charbel died on December 24th, 1898 in Anaya. Canonized by Pope Paul VI on October 7th, 1977, and his feast day in the Roman calendar is on July 24th, and in the Maronite calendar, it's always the third Sunday in July. The Maronite Church is one of the Eastern Catholic churches which maintains its own hierarchy while maintaining in full communion with the Roman Catholic Church and Pope. Its roots were in Syria before migrating primarily to Lebanon. Maronite Divine Liturgy is celebrated in Syriac language, closely resembling the Aramaic spoken by Jesus Christ. Maronites trace their heritage to Saint Maron, born in the 300s AD. Maronite tradition includes that of ordaining married men. Born into a family of 5 children in the village of Beka Kafra in North Lebanon, Yusuf Zarun Makhlouf lost his father when he was only 3 years old. As was the custom, the Makhlouf children were entrusted to their paternal uncle, Tanius Zarul Makhlouf, a mule driver, as their guardian. Meanwhile, the Yusuf's mother remarried a man who later became the local priest. Yusuf's role models, however, were his 2 maternal uncles who were hermits at the monastery of St. Anthony of Kosaya in North Lebanon, one of the oldest monasteries in the Kadisha Valley. Yusuf would walk 4 hours from the village to visit his 2 hermit uncles. He was drawn to the spiritual life, loved prayer and solitude, and yearned to live like the Desert Fathers. One of his favorite books was The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Yusuf used to take a small herd entrusted to his daily care to the prairies, and at a nearby grotto, he would kneel in front of an icon of the Virgin Mary. Villagers called him the Saint. Tanius Makhlouf wasn't particularly pleased with his nephew's piety, preferring that Yusuf worked alongside him in the trade. Further, a young woman had become attracted to Yusuf, and his mother wanted them to marry. However, Yusuf followed the call in his heart. In 1851, he arose one morning and left his family and village, traveling to the monastery of Our Lady of Alig, located in Mefuk, at the source of the Medfun River in the high mountains, built on the site of a former pagan temple. There he prepared to become a monk. After 1 year, he went to St. Maron's Monastery in Anaya, where he joined the Lebanese Maronite order, choosing the name Charbel after a 2nd century martyr from Edessa. Charbel took the monastic vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience on November 1st, 1853. Once he had pronounced his vows, his hair was cut to show his dedication. He was then dressed in the black monastic habit, the angelic cowl, or hood, the belt of the order, the tassel, and the habit. Each of these has its own special meaning and is an important symbol in the novitiate transitions to monkhood. Each of these has its own special meaning and is an important symbol in the novitiate's transition to monkhood. The black garb means that the monk has withdrawn from all worldly things. By wearing the habit, the cloth of the poor, the monk proclaims his poverty. The angelic cowl has its origin in a gift to St. Anthony the Great from an angel. It symbolizes a monk's focus and purity, proclaiming his celibate chastity as a total commitment to the will of God. He received theological training at St. Cyprian and St. Justina Monastery along with the other seminarians, under the tutelage of Father Nimtala Kasab el-Hardini, who would later be a canonized saint. Brother Charbel was ordained a priest in Berkirk in 1859 at age 31. His homilies became a source of great wisdom and direction. Here are some of his words, and I quote, "Hang on to the Lord's ship and help your brother hang on with you. At every port you reach, invite people to join you in your journey so that you may share the arrival with them. Tell them about your ship and captain and about the shore of light. But rest assured that it is not what you say that will make you embark on the Lord's ship, but rather it is your love for each other and your love for the captain, capital C, and your trust and your belief in him, and the joy on your faces." End quote. Father Charbel still held the example of his uncles in his heart. He was granted permission to pursue his calling as a hermit. At the age of 46, he entered the hermitage of Saints Peter and Paul in Anaya. There he lived out the rest of his earthly life. As a hermit, Father Charbel sang the divine office and worked in the monastic vineyards and olive orchards. He lived prayerfully and practiced intense mortification, behaviors of strong self-discipline and sacrifice. He ate 1 meal a day, sent to him by the monastery. He was never to eat meat or drink wine. During Lent, he only had vegetables with a little oil. He slept 5 hours or less per day and observed strict silence. In a case of necessity, he would speak briefly and in subdued tones. He already seemed to be living in eternity, testified Father Elias Mirini. One January, during a thunderstorm, the Father Superior, Father Nemi, narrates, Father Charbel was on his knees in the chapel, deep in meditation. In a flash, a bolt of lightning struck the building, opening a breach in the roof. It sliced off a part of the altar and struck out the floor. It sliced off a part of the altar and struck out across the floor, setting fire to Charbel's clothing. He didn't seem to notice and went right on with his devotions. His 2 companions later fainted from the heavy sulfuric smell left behind by the lightning. Father Simon of Emige testified to another story with many witnesses. It was in 1865. A cloud of locusts, completely obscuring the sun, flew over Anaya and the surrounding villages. They were preparing to settle on the crops. Realizing the terrible danger, the superior ordered the hermit Charbel to bless some water and take it into the fields to sprinkle on the ground. This is what he did. Every field he was able to enter was saved. The inhabitants of Anaya saw what was happening and ran to the monastery to beg for some of the water. They carried out the same procedure, and their fields were saved. In recognition of this wonderful assistance, 100 of these peasants later came to the monastery when the harvesting began and freely offered their time to do the reaping in the monastery's fields. According to Three Lights from the East by Father Mansour Awad, people weren't able to see his face when he was alive. He always kept his head down in church, at work, or when walking, always looking to the ground. He would lift his eyes only to heaven. When in church, he always faced the altar with his eyes fixed on the tabernacle. However, when he died and was lying face upward, his eyes were closed, still not looking at anyone, exactly as in his lifetime. This was a way of reminding himself to be humble and focus on God's will. While celebrating the Divine Liturgy on December 16, 1898, Father Charbel suffered a stroke, although some monks hypothesized that he was so caught up in prayer that it caused him to lose his faculties. He endured 8 days of pain calmly, repeating the prayer he could not finish in the Divine Liturgy. Father of truth, behold your Son, the sacrifice in whom you are well pleased. Accept him who died for me. He would also repeat the names of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, as well as Saints Peter and Paul, the patron saints of the Hermitage. He died on Christmas Eve, 1898, and was buried on a very cold and snowy day. Only a few monks were able to attend his burial. That evening, the abbot wrote in the monastery diary, "What he will accomplish after his death exempts me from itemizing his life's work. Faithful to his vows, he displayed exemplary obedience. His conduct was more angelic than human." People began seeing light around his tomb. After numerous reports, including by non-Christians, church authorities opened it and found St. Charbel's body incorrupt, not deteriorated, exuding what appeared to be sweat and blood. The Maronite patriarch allowed the body to be transferred to a special coffin on April 15th, placed in a new tomb inside the monastery. Pilgrims flocked there, asking his intercession. God granted many physical healings and spiritual blessings. Because of the exuding of sweat and blood, the tomb had to be cleaned frequently. On July 24, 1927, his body was transferred to a third tomb. Today, only his bones remain, but countless miracles continue to be attributed to his intercession. In less than 2 years, 139,000 letters from 95 nations had taken their place in the Anaya Museum dedicated to him. Father Charbel wrote nothing, not one theological or mystical treatise, not even a letter. Like Jesus, he wrote upon the hearts of his gratified listeners. The largest shrine outside of his tomb is in the Basilica of Our Lady of Guanajuato in Mexico City, where his spirituality and miracles were introduced by Lebanese immigrants in the early 1900s. Wow, what a story. Here are a few questions to ponder. What struck you about what you just heard? What stood out to you in the story? How does the life of this role model of faith teach and challenge you in your spiritual life? What lesson will you take with you in your daily life? Please leave a comment on the YouTube post that corresponds to this episode or the podcast app that you are listening to this episode on. Or you can send an email to ministry@pilgrimcenterofhope.org. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. You can download a printable pamphlet with this story, as well as a card with the quote from this month's saint, on our website, pilgrimcenterofhope.org. The link will be included in the podcast description. That quote is, "The Father's will is always good for you. Saint Charbel Makhlouf, pray for us." We are so grateful to Sean and Gina Harward for sponsoring this Social with the Saints, and we thank you for joining us. We invite you to come visit Pilgrim Center of Hope and learn more about our threefold ministry of pilgrimages, conferences, and outreach. You can also see how you can support us and sponsor an upcoming Social with the Saints. Visit pilgrimcenterofhope.org, that's pilgrimcenterofhope.org, or call us at 210-521-3377. That's 210-521-3377. Please make sure to stay up to date with details about these wonderful events. You can do so by liking our Pilgrim Center of Hope Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our email list by visiting our website, pilgrimcenterofhope.org. Until next time, remember, we are a pilgrim people, and on your journey, you are never alone in the communion of saints. May God bless you.